Hi, and welcome to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Chris Gorski.
Today is December 19th, and today we have an article about some very beautiful music.
Yes, we're talking about the very famous opera, The Nutcracker. Let's just get right to this title. And it is one of the most iconic Christmas events of each season. Although I confess, I've never seen an entire performance of The Nutcracker.
We put it on in junior high school.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you have the performance?
Yeah.
And what did you do? Were you part of the musical?
What was I doing?
Part of the dancing?
I think I was mostly watching.
Mostly watching?
Yeah.
I was a tree in my school performance in second grade. So,
But I'm just saying it's something that we did. It's a thing. And the music is really beautiful. I don't get as tired of it as I get tired of some other Christmas carols that I don't even need to mention.
Tell me more, because I actually wrote this down and I was really excited to talk about this. Earlier in the month, I mentioned how excited I was to have just a little dollop of Christmas in August when we're recording this on a particularly hot day. And although I prefer Halloween, I am a sucker for the Christmas spirit. I absolutely get into it. If I did not decorate my house in Christmas, I would just be miserable for the rest of the year. So please tell me more. What are the Christmas songs you appreciate or Christmas things you do enjoy versus what, I'm done with this?
I have both, because when you have kids, you really have to do things up for Christmas. So when my children were younger, we did decorate and had gifts and went to church and sang. We did a lot of things like that. But when the kids got older, no, I was done with that. I was thinking for any holiday whatsoever, including Chinese New Year is harder because I have family here. But for just about any holiday, if you hold your breath long enough, it'll be gone. That's honestly how I feel.
That's so funny. So you're not particularly big on Christmas carols then, or?
Not the ones that you usually hear. And the one I have to say I really, really, really do not like is Last Christmas.
Oh, that's a popular one
it's
now, too.
So
it's
bad.
Come Again.
And the pronunciation is bad, but the very next day you give it away. It's supposed to be gave, and they say give.
I mean, George Michael. I mean,
come on.
I'll forgive George Michael given how kind he was as a human being, how much money he did. I'll allow him to slide on that.
Nothing against the person. It's just I don't like the song. I really dislike it.
The video was remastered to 4K, and I play it regularly in my class. Although I kind of agree. I'm kind of over this song. The video is pure 1984. And the video is, if you need to step back in time, if you need to see the winter sights of 1984, it is a classic video, remastered in 4K. I play it in my classroom. And I'm like, guys, this is what the 80s really looked like. Because kids don't really understand this.
No,
and they have this different conception of the 80s.
Right.
And it's quite fabulous. So.
No, actually, I do have a favorite part. And for many, many years while I was teaching at Tai-Dai, I still do, but only part-time. Every Christmas, I would ask who can play an instrument. And they would write down by their name if they could play an instrument and were willing to. So some played the piano, some played the flute, some played the violin. And we got everybody who was willing to play an instrument to play Christmas carols, which we sang to in several different languages. We sang them in English and French and German and Spanish. So it was really neat. Every year we had this big thing of singing international Christmas carols with the students helping with the music. That was great.
I think the only reason I still have a guitar is to play Christmas carols in my classroom at the end of the year. I bang them out Bruce Springsteen style. Big and bombastic. That's how I like it.
And the really fun part was I have a collection of maybe a couple hundred rhythm instruments. I would pass them out, and so everybody could, tap a tambourine or shake bells or whatever it is. So it was a lot of fun.
Maybe not in my classroom. I might pass on having that chaos in my classroom. But maybe with older students.
With 19-year-olds, we enjoyed the chaos. Okay, here's our article. Our title is Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker. On December 18, 1892, the renowned Russian composer Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky premiered a ballet named The Nutcracker at the Imperial Mariinsky Theater in St. Petersburg. After its initial release, the ballet was dismissed by many critics who claimed that it lacked a storyline and contained few, if any, traditional ballet elements. However, The Nutcracker has since become world famous, and its music is now synonymous with Christmas celebrations in most parts of the world.
In the story of The Nutcracker, a young girl named Clara receives a magnificent nutcracker as a Christmas gift from her godfather. It should be noted here that many nutcrackers, though practical devices for opening nuts, are in fact ornate wooden dolls. In German folklore, these dolls were believed to possess magical powers such as bringing good luck and protecting one's home. Clara's Nutcracker, a prince, comes to life on Christmas Eve and takes Clara on a journey to a fantasy land where battles involving mice and toy soldiers are fought.
The Nutcracker is notable for its inclusion of the celesta, an instrument that resembles a small piano. However, it sounds markedly different, producing high tones like those of a music box. Tchaikovsky first encountered the celesta in Paris. Enchanted by its sound, he immediately had one ordered and sent to St. Petersburg, but he kept it a secret until the premiere of the Nutcracker. Russian audiences were thus introduced to its magical sound for the very first time. The use of the celesta is one of the many examples of how Tchaikovsky was a musical pioneer. The success of the Nutcracker over the past century shows why he earned his reputation as one of history's greatest composers. Back to the beginning. On December 18, 1892, the renowned Russian composer Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky premiered a ballet named The Nutcracker at the Imperial Mariinsky Theater in St. Petersburg, which used to be called Leningrad. They changed the name back to St. Petersburg after the fall of the USSR.
I like that change.
Yeah,
I think
too.
It's a good change.
I think we all like it.
And here's a nice informative sentence. And I always like when we can celebrate an anniversary of even, sort of obscure minor things in history. Today is December 19th. Yesterday was the anniversary of the Nutcracker. I just enjoy things like this. I enjoy digging up little things that happened in history. And on this day, this thing happened. And I always like hearing that. I don't care what it's about. What happened today? What was the thing that happened in history?
Otherwise, a day can be pretty humdrum. Just same things every day. But, oh, wow, this big thing happened back then.
Or even a small thing. Let's have a party about this one dumb thing in history, this one obscure thing. I really enjoy that. And I go out of my way to dig up, what is the weird thing that happened today in history? I want to know this.
I think a lot about that kind of thing because I am still reading the Spring and Autumn Annals of Confucius. Well, he probably didn't write them, but it's about the history of China between about 800 BC to around 400, 300 BC. And you think about these people, and this is written so well that you think, oh my God, they were just people like us doing the same stupid things all the time. All the same wonderful things. There were good people as well. But it brings it so much to life. And then you realize how much the world has already experienced before us. And we wouldn't be here without them. We often forget that. Okay, let's continue. After its initial release, the ballet was dismissed by many critics who claimed that it lacked a storyline and contained few, if any, traditional ballet elements.
Okay, so Tchaikovsky was well known by this time, and this is at the very end of his life. Tchaikovsky actually died less than a year after this ballet flopped. And when I say flopped, I mean it. The critics savaged this ballet with
They panned it.
Boy, not only did they pan it, which means they said this is not a good thing, they really went to town on it. So some of the contemporaneous reviews of the ballet from this day, quote, absurd in conception and execution. It continues, it would only please the most uncultured spectators. And then the Sugar Plum Fairy, one of the prime roles of the ballet, was called corpulent, which means really fat. And then podgy, which is kind of not only fat, but also short and fat. I can't believe
how cruel they were.
How cruel these reviews were. I mean, these are things where some directors would honestly fight a reviewer that said things like this. They'd walk up to him and punch him in the mouth. They absolutely demolished this ballet.
But there is something extremely important that we learn from the story you just told, is that if you are going to do something different, this is probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's either going to be a success, but you're taking a risk. And some people even argue that Tchaikovsky didn't like the Nutcracker himself. And he did say he felt it was weaker than some of his other work. But he also later wrote before he died that he actually felt that, no, I've come to love this thing that so many other people disliked. So there's kind of a weird dual history of the Nutcracker in Tchaikovsky's own head.
And it's probably one of the most beloved ballets that we have now for Christmas. Certainly.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's continue. However, the Nutcracker has since become world famous, and its music is now synonymous with Christmas celebrations in most parts of the world. Now, I don't know if that is really true. Most parts of the world, it's kind of sticking your neck out a bit. It may be true. Not all of the world celebrates Christmas. Keep that in mind.
And especially to the degree that some Western countries do, especially the United States. I will say that the Nutcracker has become very famous and synonymous with Christmas celebrations in anywhere where Christmas is a
thing.
Is a thing because the Nutcracker is in the public domain, and you could use this music without. That's right. So you could use this music without licensing any, and people immediately associate the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy with Christmas because it's in so many commercials.
I was thinking now, just think of how large a surface of the globe's area is actually Muslim, so they're not likely to be having a lot of Christmas celebrations. So just keep in mind, it is not the entire world.
All right, let's continue to paragraph 2. In the story of the Nutcracker, a young girl named Clara receives a magnificent nutcracker as a Christmas gift from her godfather.
And you will see these on display a lot in Taiwan around the Christmas season. I think they may be made here or elsewhere, but they're beautifully painted and really cute, hard to resist.
I remember I bought my father a nutcracker for Christmas one year. He liked decorating his house, and I saw this nutcracker, and it was like $10, which was a lot back when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
But I liked it so much, and I said my dad will really like this. And it was made of actual wood. It was actually hand-painted.
Yeah.
And so I had it in the bag. It was wrapped up in the box, and my dad was there. He's like, well, what's in the bag? I'm like, well, I can't tell you. So I'm holding the box, and he's like, oh, come on. And he's teasing me a little bit. And I'm holding it, and I won't show him. And I swear to God this is true. The bottom of the Nutcracker box falls open.
Oh, no.
And the Nutcracker falls straight down in the snow in front of me. And my dad understands this is his gift and very kind of him. He turns around and averts his gaze. He's like, I didn't see anything. I didn't see it. Oh, don't worry. And I felt so terrible. But it's just one of those funny things. It's just his gift falls right in front of him.
For a minute, I was afraid the ending would be, and it hit the ground and shattered.
No, of course. It's covered in snow. You know how this goes.
There's one good thing about snow.
Yeah. All right. Let's continue to our next sentence here. It should be noted here that many nutcrackers, though practical devices for opening nuts, are in fact ornate wooden dolls. We have some great words here.
Yeah, they are. But I should mention that the kind of nutcrackers you usually see for sale now are no good for cracking nuts.
No good.
No, they're just for decoration.
This one, you could actually crack nuts. Ornate just means very fancy and beautiful. Some nutcrackers can be quite tall and hefty. Also, in our last sentence, we had the word godfather. And a godfather, in some contexts, is a really bad guy. But usually the godfather is the person in charge of like leading your spiritual faith, making sure you learn to be a good Christian. Godfather is sometimes, well, actually, I would say maybe more often considered to be the head of a mafia or gangster family. And these are guys you would not want to cross in any context.
For me, I was baptized, so the person who witnesses the baptism and signs their name is your godfather or godmother.
Did you feel your godparents did anything for your faith?
Not really, but they were good friends of the family, so I always
good.
appreciated them.
I know people that have good godparents. My godparents, I don't know. I don't even know who my godfather is. I have no idea.
They were just nice people, and anybody that my parents thought were nice people was fine with me.
All right, let's continue here. In German folklore, these dolls were believed to possess magical powers, such as bringing good luck and protecting one's home.
Okay, now it's getting interesting. Actually, even if you don't believe in magic, I think we all need magic in our lives. And when we read things like this, it kind of gets our imagination fired up.
Yeah, I suppose so. And nutcrackers are so unique looking. I can imagine why these were chosen as a central figure in this. I mean, they look like soldiers. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense the way this pans out in the story where these guys are fighting a war.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's continue to our next sentence here. Clara's nutcracker, a prince, comes to life on Christmas Eve and takes Clara on a journey to a fantasy land where battles involving mice and toy soldiers are fought.
I'm just thinking of my reaction to reading about running off with a prince when I was young, how I would imagine it and how I would imagine it now. When you're a kid, you have these dreams of being a princess and finding your prince. When you're older, you think, yeah, I bet he's a real entitled something or other.
Yeah, I as a kid, I used to think like going back to the Middle Ages would be really cool.
Oh.
And then today I'm like, I would
No
never
way.
go back. Maybe I might go back to the 70s or 80s in a
That was
time machine.
fine.
And
It was
that
fine.
might be it. I don't want to go back any farther than that. That's I agree. As you age, the idea of princes and princesses and the knightly, no thanks. I'm good.
All right, we're going to go on to the last paragraph. The Nutcracker is notable for its inclusion of the celesta, an instrument that resembles a small piano. Now, I was always sort of familiar with the celesta because I like to play with music apps, and they almost always have a celesta. You can make the music sound like it's being played on a celesta, but I hadn't really seen one, so I looked it up, and I thought, yes, it really does just look like a small piano. But how do they get that very tinkly, very lovely, childlike sound? Well, it is basically like a xylophone. In Chinese, you call it an iron zither, basically. So when you're a kid, you have this maybe a toy with 12 notes on it, and you can hit them with a hammer. It sounds just like that. They are just strips of steel. And when you play the key on the piano, a hammer will strike it.
I wonder why the xylophone continues to exist when the celesta is a thing that you can actually play. Because to me, and I'm not knowledgeable in playing the xylophone in any sort of way, you have your xylophone or a vibraphone in the front of the device, and then you play the celesta like you would a piano, exactly like a piano.
Right.
And it produces different notes. But as far as I know, the piano is a more versatile instrument that can produce a wider range of sounds. And because they're played functionally the same piano, I'm not sure the advantages of playing the xylophone over the piano. So there, maybe someone that's more knowledgeable in music could explain this to me. But the way I saw the celesta played, I was just like, why do xylophones exist if you could just do this?
I will disagree with you.
Interesting.
Because
Please do.
I have seen some extremely dynamic performances on xylophones and vibraphones, and they can hold like 3 mallets in each hand and then produce these beautiful chords. The dynamic range is huge, really loud or really soft, or using a vibrato sort of, or tapping it very quickly. It's wonderful. And just watching their bodies interact with this instrument, it's really wonderful to watch.
There's a fellow on Instagram that I watch regularly who plays famous compositions, be it for movies or just pop music or even video game music. And he plays it on this device. Unfortunately, it's slipping my mind. And it's not a celesta. It's not a vibraphone or a xylophone. It has very thin strings. It almost looks like a Chinese instrument. Unfortunately,
a zither. It sounds like a zither.
No. It's not even that. Believe me, I'll think of it the second we're done recording.
Hammer, dulcimer?
Yeah, dulcimer. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
Those
Karen
are wonderful.
with the big save. It's beautiful. And he plays it with such pizzazz, but to me, I still think I think a piano would just do just well. But I enjoy the unique tones that he produces with this instrument to play these familiar songs.
Yeah, we disagree on that. I really love the original instrument. Let's go on. However, it sounds markedly different, producing high tones like those of a music box. And yes, it does sound a lot like a music box. Tchaikovsky first encountered the celesta in Paris, so it was a discovery. And I can really identify this because I have traveled to a lot of different countries, often with a tour group. The one thing I want to do is I want to buy an instrument from that country. I brought a sitar back from India, for example. I brought a dutar back from Xinjiang. So I really love this idea of finding a new instrument in another country. Enchanted by its sound, he immediately had one ordered and sent to St. Petersburg, but he kept it a secret until the premiere of the Nutcracker. He planned this out so carefully. He had this surprising new innovative instrument, wrote this wonderful opera or ballet, and then he got all that criticism. That is really so mean, gosh, because he went to so much trouble. Russian audiences were thus introduced to its magical sound for the very first time. Even now, if you just hear a recording of it, it is so magical and so wonderful.
Yeah, it does have, it stands out. It does stand out in many ways. It's so unique. And, I've seen parts of it where there's just kind of a lot of dancing. And say what you will about the Nutcracker. Does it lack a story in its second half as it's claimed in paragraph 1? I think that's fair. There are just long, extended dances without much happening. That's fair. But to be fair, the Nutcracker draws attention because it's so closely associated with Christmas. And ballet companies, ballet troupes, as they're often called, use the funding from these Christmas shows to put on shows that otherwise would go ignored, or the ballet troupe would just close entirely. So say what you will. Maybe you don't enjoy it. Maybe this is not for you. Nonetheless, this is the thing that keeps the lights on.
I think that this instrument really brings you to a fairyland, with that tinkly sound, and that's something I really love. The use of the celesta is one of many examples of how Tchaikovsky was a musical pioneer, and I really admire that. Finding a whole new instrument and bringing it into this magnificent ballet is great. The success of the Nutcracker over the past century shows why he earned his reputation as one of history's greatest composers. He was a grand composer, did everything on a grand scale. I can say that for him.
Tying back to what you just said a few minutes ago, where you purchase instruments from places that you have visited, and how Tchaikovsky saw the celesta, says, I need to use this. I want to use this in my new ballet. And it made me think of almost like the Beatles, where the Beatles introduced the sitar.
The sitar.
That's right, in pop music. And it's so funny listening to the evolution of the sound of the Beatles from the, She Loves You, yeah, to these songs with sitars and this interesting instrumentation, just doing something different while still creating some great pop music. And I suppose many great composers aren't just doing the popular thing really well. They're also trying to push things forward, which is a valuable thing. I bet there are many more examples that I'm just not thinking about. Like I would think of maybe synthesizers in the 1980s, in the 70s especially, and then how it went more mainstream in the 80s. But I'm sure there are even more examples that I'm just not thinking of at this time. Okay, before we jump to our questions, let's very briefly talk about how the Nutcracker gained its lasting fame in the United States especially. So the Nutcracker, as we learned, was panned. It flopped hard in Russia. But here we are in the United States, where ballet troupes always perform this to help keep the lights on. So the Nutcracker suite was first introduced to wider audiences by Disney in the 1940 film Fantasia. And Americans were kind of primed to this music. They had seen this in this somewhat popular film. And in 1957 and 1958, CBS, this TV channel in the United States, shows the Nutcracker suite on Christmas night. And people are like, oh, that's the song from Fantasia, and this connection made, and it was a hit. There wasn't much going on Christmas night in 1957 and 1958 in the United States. And it was here that the Nutcracker became kind of an American institution. And it's due to those two nights and Fantasia in the 40s that we still care about this thing today. What a funny turn of events.
Okay, we have two questions for you. First, where did Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker make its debut? At the Imperial Mariinsky Theater in St. Petersburg. And number two, what does a celesta sound like?
So we have maybe a few things. So you and I were both discussing the vibraphone or the xylophone. But really, what was the instrument in the story? A music box.
It sounded like a music box. That's all we have time for today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye and Merry Christmas.